Hum by Verizon has you covered, and I will come to you in Marion County to install the Hum for free. Time to call me at 352-528-0020. Are you ready to hum along? Call 352-528-0020.
Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. Gene and Debbie thank you for another successful year, and to wish you and yours a year ahead full of health, faith, and compassion. In addition to our pasture mowing, we also offer fence line spraying for weed control and rototilling for your winter gardens. We are family owned and operated, licensed and insured, and farm ready. Powell Gene, Gene at yahoo.com. 352-629-2440. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. 352-629-2440. Gene is a proud United States veteran.
Career Source, Citrus, Levy, Marion brings together business and community partners, economic development leaders, and educational providers to connect employers with qualified, skilled talent and job seekers with employment and career development opportunities. Tune in the first Wednesday of each month at 9:30 to Career Source, Citrus, Levy, Marion, and learn how they can help you.
Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY, only $4.99. Plus, DIY has the largest selection of mobile home parts and accessories anywhere. From carpet to doors, get the DIY supplies you need for less. The DIY Home Center outlet. We are your building material closeout store. 2191 Northwest 10th Street, just 2 miles east of I-75.
It's Monday. Not sure how you did it, but you actually survived an entire 2 days without hearing from Tom. Good job to you. And once again, good luck.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks with Tom Schmitz on a Monday, February 8th. A warm Monday. Sun's trying to peek out from behind the clouds. Going to be kind of a warm week this week. Highs all the way up into the upper 70s into the low 80s. So maybe the winter, no, there'll be one more cold snap. You know, there'll be one more cold snap. I'm joined in studio by Captain Jesse Blair from the Ocala Fire Department. Captain, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me today.
Get a little closer to the microphone.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Let's talk a bit about, because we always talk about, and we're going to talk about the programs that will help addiction and everything. We'll do that later in the show. But I come across a new phrase that I don't know anything about. So community paramedicine.
Right. You got it right.
What in the world is that?
Community paramedicine is a proactive approach to healthcare. And so if you have someone who continues to use the emergency room over and over again for the same problem, we don't want to do that anymore because the emergency room is a busy and expensive place to get primary health care. So the paramedics will come to your house and treat you there.
Really? So it's almost like a house call?
It is. It's like house calls.
And it's for people who... give me some examples of what somebody would repeatedly use the emergency room for.
So our program separates people into, we call them buckets, but they're like cohorts or groups of patients. So you have congestive heart failure is very expensive and causes people to go back to the hospital several times.
And that's basically where they're drowning in their own fluids.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, their heart's not pumping enough.
I know that. My mother died of congestive heart failure brought on by complication from COPD. So I have a basis in that.
Yes, sir. That's the other one of the other buckets is COPD. So COPD also causes people to have to go to the hospital over and over and over again.
Breathing treatments, their oxygen levels are below 90, and so they're not breathing well.
That's right. So then we have people who had recent open heart surgery and are having some complications with that. And then there's a fourth group that are just classified high utilizers. And that usually has some kind of mental health
component. Call those hypochondriacs.
There's usually some kind of mental health component to it. But instead of that person going back to the emergency room and taking up a room there, we've partnered with Advent Health, and now we go see those patients in their home. We figure out why they can't seem to get their treatment right, and we can fill the gaps. So if they're not going to their primary care doctor because they don't have one or just don't have transportation, we can make those connections for them.
So it's basically, without them coming and taking up a hospital bed, you're basically going out and triaging the situation and seeing it's whether it's something that can be handled in home or whether they actually do have a need to then be transported to the hospital.
That is a spot-on way to describe the program. Absolutely.
So it's basically in-home triage.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, stops hospital beds from being taken up in a time where respiratory infections right now are kind of keeping everybody a little busy.
Yeah, yes. You know, one of the reasons you don't want to go back to the hospital right now, especially, is because you can get an infection in the hospital.
Yeah.
As much as they clean and sanitize and you use hand sanitizer, wash your hands and all that stuff, sick people are at the hospital. So
100%. The hospital's always a petri dish.
Right. So you would prefer not to expose yourself or your loved ones to that stuff in the hospital. So now you don't have to.
Does this in any way stop the level of service that can be given out to other individuals in the community because you're on a call where you may be going back to Millie's house, and this is the third time in a week Millie's called because her scar tissue's hurting her a little bit on her open heart surgery or something.
Sure. Nah.
Does it hurt, or is any amount of service being lessened because of this?
Absolutely not. In fact, this enhances the service. It gives the hospital another resource for their patients, and then instead of Millie having to call 911, she already knows that she has an appointment at 9 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where a paramedic is going to come to her house and provide services that she would normally get at the hospital, but she doesn't have to go to the hospital.
So this is an appointment-based thing. Then it's not they call 911 and an ambulance goes out because they're known to use the hospital as their primary doctor. This is something that actually you set up appointments so you cut off the need to call 911.
Absolutely. So the way Advent set their program up is the Ocala Fire Rescue paramedic will meet the patient in the hospital before they go home and set up a schedule. So we already know what their problem is. We already know some of the barriers they have to care, and we're already working on that case before the person gets discharged from the hospital.
I don't know if you know this number or not, because I do these interviews without letting you know what the questions are, because they come to me and I ask them. Is this something that, can you tell me hard numbers, how this is alleviating trips to the hospital? Do you know whether it's cutting down 7 out of 10 or 5 out of 10?
So in quarter 4 of 2020, which is October, November, December, Ocala Fire Rescue ran 35 less 911 calls to 8 patients. So those 8 patients were calling 65 times, and now they only called 30 times, which is a big cost savings.
Yeah, because at 65 calls, 8 patients, that's 8 calls on average per patient.
Right.
Now if they're down to 30, that's 3 calls per average.
Right.
About 3.5 calls per average.
And we're still dealing with sick people. So the chances are they're going to need to call 911. And our program lasts between 30 and 90 days. So it's a big cost savings, both for Ocala Fire. It's better care. It's called the continuum of care. It's better care for the patient. And then the hospital also realizes savings too, because that's 35 times they didn't go to the emergency room and use the resources there.
And that's just 8 patients.
That's just 8 patients.
And I know that's what you're working with. I'm sure it's a small group of patients right now you're working with.
Right. There are 15 spots in the program right now, but we hope to grow that with Advent's help.
But just think, if all 15 spots were full, and say you take half of those calls, 8, and it's down to 4, that's 60 less calls a month you're having to go on.
Right.
So that frees you up to actually take care of 60 other people that may need services.
That's right.
And that's 60 less emergency room visits that cost the hospital, and by the way, people with insurance, because the way hospitals make up the pro bono that they do, which is basically what happens when somebody uses the emergency room as their primary care doctor, that means most of the time they don't have insurance.
Right.
So the way the hospital makes up that money is they just pass that along to your insurance company for the people who have insurance. Mm-hmm. So it saves money. It could, in the long run, make everybody's insurance go down. These kind of programs could be a benefit monetarily to the community at large, not just the fire department and the hospital.
Right. And for the cost, we have one paramedic that does this 5 days a week, and that costs way less than those 35 visits to the emergency room.
Yeah, because you got the triage nurse, then you got the emergency room nurse, then you got the emergency room doctor. If there's 2 doctors, if it's consult because it's a heart patient, now you got to bring the heart doctor in. All of these, you can go into the emergency room and in a 2-hour, 3-hour stay in the emergency room have a $12,000 bill.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yep. So there's cost savings all the way around, and it makes, like I said, it's better care for the patient. And it saves taxpayer dollars on the fire department side, and it saves money on the hospital side as well.
Now, this is called community paramedicine.
Right.
And how long have you been in partnership with Advent Health doing this?
We started April 1st of 2020 when we saw our first patient for them.
So it's been 3 quarters now. Mm-hmm. So if you just saving 5 visits per person, 35 visits a quarter, and I know it wasn't that way originally. It took a while to get to 30, but you figure this is going to grow to where all 15 spots are full.
Oh yeah.
So just take 40 spots a month. That's been 9 months. That's 360 visits to the hospital that didn't take place.
Yeah.
And if you figure each visit's a $10,000 visit.
That's huge.
That's
money.
a bunch of money.
Huge money.
That's $3.6 million.
Right. So an easy way to estimate how much it costs for an emergency, like an emergency call, an EMS call. If you take the total budget of Ocala Fire and divide it by the number of calls we run a year, it costs about $700 to send a fire truck or a rescue to your house.
And that's before you get to the emergency room.
Right. So
that's just what it costs the Ocala Fire. The taxpayers pay Ocala Fire to go with a fire truck and an ambulance. That's just that cost. That doesn't incur any of the cost once you get to Advent Health in the emergency room, or to any of the hospitals in the emergency room.
That's 300 people not having to pay an ambulance bill. That's 300 people or their insurance not having
That's
to pay.
$210,000 right there, just in ambulance bills.
Right. Yeah.
That's almost $250,000.
We didn't invent this. This is a healthcare model that's making progress through the entire United States. Community paramedicine.
Is this something that is done? I know Ocala Fire does it and do it in concert with Advent Health, but are you looking to do it in concert with the other hospitals that aren't Advent Health in our community, or just Advent Health?
Advent Health is the one who gave us a grant to do this pilot program.
Right.
The pilot program was for 12 months. We're at the end of March, we'll gather all the data, come together, and see what do we want to do going forward. And we would love for other stakeholders to come together with the program. I know Marion County Fire Rescue is looking at the program and seeing where they can plug themselves into it. So I would expect this program to grow in Marion County and not limit it to patients at Advent, but to allow any frequent or high utilizer of the system to get plugged in and to get the resources.
Is this something that you could also see an advantage of telemedicine being used as well?
Absolutely. In fact, our next phase will be to implement telemedicine into the program.
Is that, when all this COVID stuff is said and done and we got a handle on it and we're back to as normal as we can be, is one of the silver linings of COVID going to be telemedicine?
I think it is. Yeah. Telemedicine comes in different forms, but when you use an app, the hospital information is inside the app, and when you see a doctor inside the app and the doctor has all the information, you don't have to leave your house.
What are you doing different in the telemedicine thing? Like when I go to my primary care doctor, I go sit in the waiting room, sick people all around me. Mm-hmm. Then I go stand on a scale. Then they take my blood pressure. Then I go sit in another room, an examination room that probably has been cleaned as good as they can clean it, but there's probably still germs in there. I wait for the doctor to come in, and then we have a face-to-face. He listens to my heart to make sure my breathing's clear and all, but for the most part, unless I have a serious ailment that needs to be attuned to, that needs hands-on touching, I'm basically doing a face-to-face telemedicine because I'm in his office. I could do that from my tablet at home just as easy.
Sure. And telemedicine is in its infancy right now. There's apps on your phone that you can get your oxygen saturations
You
from.
can get your glucose. You can get all kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it won't be too much longer before the doctor will have you, put a vest on.
And you'll know your blood pressure, what your heart's doing.
Yep, plug it into your phone, and he'll have your EKG, your blood pressure, everything. They'll have everything they need. For
a guy like me, the worst part of going to a doctor isn't the doctor visit. It's the sitting in a waiting room around sick people. Because I played cards for a long time, and so cards are gross as a gross game. Poker's a gross game because the cards and the chips and all are nasty, and nobody washes their hands because they're rushing back to the table and everything. So I've been a germ guy I wash my hands probably 15, 20 times a day, but it had nothing to do with COVID. It's just, yeah, I get grossed out.
Sure.
So one of the best things for me is, I could sit in my lazy boy and talk to my doctor, and he can still write the same prescriptions, still send them. And I know some of the class 2 narcotics, you're still going to have to go in and get a physical prescription. He can't just send that to the drugstore or whatever, to the pharmacy. You have to go pick that. I understand that. But for the most part, telemedicine is going to change the game of medicine, especially your visits to your primary care physician.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to save money. It's going to save time. It's going to prevent all those infections that you may have gotten at your doctor's office or the hospital. It's a big deal.
Talk about a big deal. The partnership between the Ocala Fire Rescue, the Marion County Fire Rescue, Advent Health, the Paddock Mall, the County Commission, the City Council, all to go into a vaccine pinpoint, which we have here in the Paddock Mall. How much of a game changer was that in the fight against getting people vaccinated and make sure that we get on top of this COVID?
In Marion County specifically, I'm not sure what they do in other counties, but all of the different public health agencies have a fantastic relationship. So with the addition of Advent to that and the idea to come over here to the Paddock Mall, they literally do hundreds of vaccines every single day.
750 a day they're capable of doing.
I don't know another county that's hitting those numbers.
And that's just here.
With the success that we are here.
Marion County should be the blueprint for the country. I don't know how the way seniors get back. And I know it was a rough couple of days. Everybody goes, no, it was terrible. I know the first week was rough with the phone lines not being overloaded and the website crash and everything. But it's new technology. We had to learn how the system would get stressed and how to fix that stress and everything. But 50,000 people signed up in 3 days. Were you surprised that many people in Marion County took COVID that serious?
No, I'm not, because of all of the retirement age people we have here. I know that there were a lot of people that were concerned about it, especially with comorbidities. But I'm happy that we had the response that we did, and it's incredible to see all of the hands make this program work so efficiently.
It's amazing to me how very well oiled the machine is. Mm-hmm. And that's what to get this many people. Remember, we have almost 400,000 people that live in Marion County, not just Ocala proper, but in Marion County we have almost 400,000 people. Mm-hmm. I dare say it would be near half of them are over the age of 60.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's who the governor said. Anybody over 65 is the governor said they must be vaccinated. In Marion County, that made perfect sense to me because that's a large chunk of our population. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they're the one most susceptible to death from this. Now, it's killing people. It doesn't have an age group. It is killing people of all ages. But it's killing people over the age of 65 more than it's killing anybody else. Yeah. So the fact that we have that large population here, I saw that as a light at the end of the tunnel, just as the governor said they go first. Mm-hmm. And it seems that our senior population is very serious about getting vaccinated. You see all over like the country, you hear only 30% of frontline healthcare workers want the shot and everything. I've found that anybody I know that's in nursing or in hospitals, they've all been vaccinated. I haven't seen, and I know some people are probably refusing, but I know all the people I know that work for the fire department, they work for the hospitals, all friends of mine, they've all been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, I didn't get vaccinated for me. I got vaccinated because I deal with people over the age of 65. Right. And I deal with people that have respiratory issues and all already. I don't want to be another contributing factor, so I got the vaccine. Are you finding that's what a lot of people are thinking in their heads?
There's so many different opinions on the vaccine.
There really are.
Especially because it's new. The technology's not new.
It didn't go through the 10-year testing that you think it has to go through.
Right. So there are a fair amount of firefighters that were uncomfortable with the vaccine, but even with just the history we have right now, there's more and more individuals, at least that work for Ocala Fire, that are saying, "Hey, how do I get my vaccine now?" I know they didn't get it initially. They wanted to see kind of how the rollout was and what the side effects were. But now that I think everything's coming together, they're now willing to get their vaccine for the same reason that you talked about, so they don't pass the virus on to any of their patients.
We got a caller real quick. Hi, caller. You're on with Captain Jesse Blair.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm speaking as a senior citizen. When this virus first came,
did we lose Sonny? Sonny, your phone's breaking up really bad. It dropped the call. Maybe he'll call back. But I'm just glad that seniors are taking this serious.
Yeah.
And I think the county as a whole, I know people talk about, well, there's no mask mandate, there's mask mandate. You know, wear your mask. If you're not going to be able to stay 6 feet from people, wear a mask. It's not required. It's just what you should do as a human. Okay, well, I don't want to wear a mask. Why don't they stay home? Okay, that's a terrible attitude. And believe me, I have masks hanging in my car. I wear them when I can't be. I'll give you a prime example. Saturday, I played in a golf tournament. I know all the guys in that golf tournament, but I don't see them on a daily basis. I don't know what they do in their daily lives. I see them at the golf course. We're playing this monthly golf tournament. So because of that, I put a mask on when I was around them, trying to find out who was paying what and what you know, who finished first, who finished. I sat in there with a mask on.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to maybe get them sick and wanted to try to figure out, somebody said, well, masks don't work. Okay, maybe it doesn't work. But if I put a barrier across my mouth, I'm thinking it stops some things from getting in. I mean, that just common sense, isn't it?
It is, and it's kind of a goodwill gesture too. If you're uncomfortable and you'd rather me put a mask on, I don't mind wearing a mask for you. No big deal.
Although I do find it hilarious that restaurants and all, and this is statewide, nationwide. I've been to Savannah during this pandemic. I've been to Orlando. You go into a restaurant, as you walk in the restaurant, your mask must be on. But then you sit at your table, your mask can come off because obviously COVID stops right before it gets to your table.
I don't know if I don't have an opinion on that right now.
And I know you got to be able to eat, so you got to take the mask off. But the silliness of you got to walk that 25 feet through the restaurant with a mask on. But once you get to the table, you can take it off because COVID can't get to the table.
Yeah.
Just like, well, we need to close this restaurant at 10 o'clock at night because if it stays open till 11, COVID comes out at 10 o'clock.
Right.
So we got. But there's a lot of quirky things like that with this, and I think it's because we don't know anything about this yet. We still in its infancy what we know.
Yeah, everybody wants to do their part, and you know, restaurant owners are no different. The CDC is no different. Everybody wants to do what they think they can do. So, you know.
Hi, caller. You got about a minute. You're on with Captain Jesse Blair.
Yeah, I would like to know, this sounds like hospital on wheels. Does each unit that you send out have an ARPN or somebody that's certified to handle what's called Class 1 emergencies? I'll just hang up and listen to you.
These are fire department paramedics, so there's not an emergency that you can imagine that these guys don't have the answers to.
So they're certified in all the emergency situations.
Oh, yeah. It's a paramedic firefighter. It's not a brand new guy that just got out of school either. These are seasoned professionals with years and years of experience.
So, you know, it's healthcare at its finest. It's still healthcare at its finest. So, real quick before we let you go, how are we with our our other pandemic, the opioid pandemic? I know they call it an epidemic, but it's a damn pandemic as well.
It is. You know, and
got about a minute.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the numbers are holding steady. They're not going up exponentially like they have been in years past. but we're trying to hold it. We're trying to hold it down, and we're doing a pretty good job of it. So
can't arrest your way out of it.
Can't.
Just like the Chief Greg Graham, you say, can't arrest your way out of it.
Right.
So you are doing a great job, Captain Blair. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you again in a month or so.
Yes, sir.
Captain Jesse Blair for the Ocala Fire Department. He has been gracious enough to be our guest. We'll be right back after this timeout. You're listening to Ocala Talk, hour number 3. Coming up next, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.